And hi, once again, this is Focus to Springfield's Government Matters Show. My name is Mike Dobbs. I'm managing editor for Reminder Publication, and this evening we've got Nick Cocchi, the new High Sheriff of Hampden County, as our guest. Thanks for doing the show, and thanks for being here, Nick.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
The whole purpose of this show is to try to give people an insight into various aspects of local government, and the most prominent remnant of county government for us is, of course, what you're doing at the House of Corrections out in Ludlow. So first of all, let's just give our audience a sort of a snapshot of what's happening at the House of Corrections. And how large is the population that you currently are serving there in terms of the inmates? And let's talk a little bit about some of the programs that you have kept over from your predecessor that are helping them in their road to recovery.
Well, right now we presently serve a population of about 1,500, scattered throughout our 5 facilities. Right now, behind the main institution in Ludlow, the medium security, we have about 950. When we start to program the offenders and move them down through the step-down approach of re-entering them back to the community, we then utilize our Ludlow facility to our pre-release center, to our addiction center now located right here up on Mill Street. We have a women's correctional center down in Chicopee. We also have an aftercare incarceration support service department located up on State. So we have many facilities that are involved in, I would say, closing the circle on our reentry plan that starts when each offender comes in day one. We start to plan the release time.
I don't think that people generally, when they think of a jail, for lack of better terms, they don't think of these kinds of programs that you're doing. So the whole point of this is to prevent someone, or to give them the tools for them to prevent themselves from ever coming back into the system. Let's talk a little bit about recidivism. The recidivism rate for the Hampden County House of Corrections is pretty low, especially compared to national averages.
It is. We're very proud of our recidivism rate. Our one-year recidivism rate is somewhere in the numbers of about 15 to 15.5%. It does double when you go up to 3 years. So we get to around probably 30, 31%. That is still about 14 to 15 points lower than the national average. Hampden County has one of the lowest recidivism rates in the country. And people say, well, why is that and how is it possible? Well, we believe it's possible and it's happening because of the intense treatment and education that we're giving the offenders while they're incarcerated at the Hampden County Sheriff's Department. When you come in with substance abuse issues, mental health issues, criminogenic behaviors that are continuing to allow you to break the law, to be a victim to addictive tendencies, or to not be able to make cognitive thinking decisions, and you end up ultimately in jail. Those are the first 3 things that we attack when you come in. We immediately do an assessment, a mental health assessment, a medical assessment. We do a cage assessment to find out where you are at as far as your substance abuse issues. And then finally, we'll do an assessment on your criminal behaviors. Where is it that you're going wrong? And then your service plan, your individual service plan throughout the course of where you will travel throughout your incarceration is going to chip away at each and every one of those things that we've identified with their support and their upfront candidness with us on why they're in jail. Now, if somebody walks through the door and tells us they don't have a problem and refuse to talk to us, there's not much we can do. But that's where we start to challenge and hold the inmates accountable to, you're here for a reason. Our job is to put you and allow you the opportunity to go back to your community, a better mother or father, a better husband or a wife, a better brother or a sister, and to have the tools on your tool belt to be successful. The first 3 things that we have to always remember and consider, that anyone leaving jail is going to have a tough time finding a place to live if they don't have one, finding a place to work if they don't have employment, and to maintain and continue to be active in their wraparound service appointments. So if we can stabilize housing, employment, and wraparound services, and making sure that the offenders go to their AA or NA class, that they're going to their mental health appointments, that they're going to their health appointments, that they have a place to go work during the day, because a job allows you to pay for your rent, which is where you put your head at night. That's what we call the three-legged stool. Take one of those legs of the stool away, and the stool will collapse. And we have noticed that when we are effective in helping people maintain those three important key elements of reentering back to the community, the success rate is higher and the recidivism rate is dropping. So I commend the men and women at the Sheriff's Department who are on the front line, the correctional officer, the caseworkers, the counselors, the mental health clinicians, everybody who's involved in giving that offender an opportunity to get another shot, another chance to do it right, to go back to the community and be law-abiding rather than somebody who's terrifying, horrifying, and victimizing their communities.
You said something very interesting, which is about if the incoming inmate gives it a chance, if they're honest. Do you find that most inmates recognize the position that they're in and that they see this as an opportunity for change, they see this as an opportunity for advancement, really, as opposed to the inmate who is going to clam up and say, hey, you know, I don't need any of this, I'm just here to serve my time. Do most people recognize the opportunity that this is giving them?
I would say they do. Now, it's twofold. Some of the population comes in and they understand that if they program well and they behave, they're going to get earned good time. And that earned good time is going to help reduce their sentence and it's going to put them back to the community quicker. Our fear is that people come in and pull the wool over our eyes or put blinders on, just come in and get along to go along and aren't absorbing what we're teaching them because they're going back to the community unprepared. But what I also see is a very high number of the people that come to us, they come to us at their darkest time. They come to us when they've been removed from their family and society. They're being taken out of mainstream of the community and being incarcerated to get their attention. And when their back's against the wall, they've been removed from society, now they're being told when they're going to eat, what they're going to eat, what classroom they're going to go to, what time to get up and what time to go to bed, you can get their attention. And I do believe that when we grab their attention and offer them the opportunity to do better, that we've shown some real successes there. We don't just take it for granted or take their word that they're learning. We have journals, and they got to write in their journal. And when they're writing in their journal about what we're teaching them, we then collect them. And we have caseworkers and counselors reviewing it and reading it and seeing exactly what's being absorbed and how it's impacting our population. The things that are being written in everyone's journal that's being duplicated, we know that's an impact statement. We know that it's making impact in that class. So we expound on it. So when we talk about anger management, domestic violence, we talk about the substance abuse treatment, when we get a group of offenders to start to comment about certain aspects of that training, we know we struck a chord. And we have to make sure that we maintain continuing to reintroduce that particular theme and what potentially the solution to that problem may be. So we do see a lot of success there. And the other thing is this, when you're doing county time at the Hampden County Sheriff's Department, you're going back to the community. You are going back to your backyard, my backyard, and everybody out there watching's backyard. It's our job, it's our fundamental responsibility, especially mine as a sheriff of Hampden County, to make sure we're providing public safety. And the best way we can provide public safety from a correctional standpoint is to take an offender who comes to us angry, victimized, has victimized or hurt, aggressive and assaultive, and bring them back to the community more confident, less angry, less violent, and more prepared to do the right thing.
Another thing I want to just touch on is how many of the inmates are coming in, and you mentioned you evaluate this, but how many of the inmates are coming in with substance abuse problems?
87% come in with a substance abuse issue. Out of that 87%, 54% come in with mental health problems. So when you talk about 87% with a substance abuse issue, coupled with a mental health issue, that's called co-occurring disorders. So before we can start to educate them and treat them, we have to stabilize them. So it's a very complex process of what we do when somebody walks into our intake discharge door. We take them in. We have no say who comes in the door. We have no say. We absolutely have a say in the product, in the person we put out the door. And I think that's what I encourage our staff to always remember every day they come in and punch that time clock, is that you have an opportunity, an awesome responsibility, and an opportunity when you hit the time clock to affect someone's life for the rest of their life in a positive way. As a correctional officer, we're correcting behavior. As a public servant, you're providing a service to the public and putting somebody back in the community that hopefully is going to do the right thing, be productive, take advantage of their second opportunity to get it right. And then you're serving the public by doing that each and every day, because hopefully you're alleviating some of their fears of the bad guy or the bad girl is coming back. Yes, they're coming back, but we're hoping they're coming back more productive and less violent.
Okay, you've been with the Hampden County Jail for decades.
Correct.
And you've worked your way up through, if I remember correctly.
That's
you
right.
started out as a correctional officer working the jail cells, basically. But now you're in this position where you've taken over for a guy who was there for 42 years and was your mentor. How does that feel for you? Because now, you're in the seat. You are the guy. So how has it been in terms of the transition for you?
I literally sit in the same seat that Sheriff Ash has sat in for 42 years. It's an honor. It's an honor and a privilege. It's an honor to follow in Sheriff Ash's footsteps, and it's a privilege to serve Hampden County. But I've learned from the best. Sheriff Mike Ash is a pioneer in modern day corrections. Here in Hampden County and in Western Massachusetts and in the Commonwealth, we all recognize Sheriff Ash as a pioneer. But to what extent do we really understand the impact he's had on corrections around the country? I can tell you. I've been to Colorado. I'm going back down to Quantico for the Large Jail Network National Institute of Corrections conference. And when we go down there, there's not a conference that is held without some recognition of the work that happens out of Hampden County. You talk about proud. You talk about beaming with pride. Now, after 23, into my 24th year of service, I'm at the tip of the spear. I'm going to go down there, continue to go down there, continue to give praise and gratitude to the great men and women that do the job every day. But the responsibility now falls on my shoulders to make sure that we continue to progress and we continue to become relevant and continue to provide not just the Commonwealth or Hampden County, but the country with modern day correction approaches, the best practices that work when dealing with the offender population. We've had a sheriff that was way ahead of his time. He believed in reentry when people were still talking about lock them up and throw away the key. He believed in day reporting when people said, again, lock them up, don't let them out. And he had to overcome a lot of those obstacles, him and his brother Jay, and ultimately our department. But now you can't go anywhere in the country, not a state around, that people aren't talking about day reporting, step-down approaches, programming, and reentry. Because from the President of the United States on down, they recognize that you have to defuse anger, you have to educate. You are never going to jail yourself out of the criminal justice issues, but you can educate yourself out of hopefully many of them. So it's an honor. It's an honor to follow Sheriff Ash. But I'm my own guy, Mike. I have a bachelor's degree from Western New England University. I have a master's degree from Elms College. I have 23 plus years of correctional experience. So as I sit in the chair, I can relate to our changes. Going back to, as you alluded to earlier, I walked on the tiers. I worked in the blocks. I worked elbow to elbow and shoulder to shoulder with the offender population. I respect them as people. They, in turn, respect me as an administrator and now as a sheriff. I walked through the facility just the other day, and I can't tell you how many people, the inmates, came up and shook my hand and says, "We're glad to have you." Now, what does that mean? They're glad because they know that I believe in the system that we're presently operating in. and they know that we're going to continue to work on their behalf, but they also know who I was as a correctional officer and as a sergeant and a lieutenant and as a commander of the tactical unit. I'm no nonsense. We're here to help. Reach out and get your help. If you're here to hinder that process, if you're here to throw a monkey wrench into the good work we're trying to do, please, we'll deal with you, and we will deal with you firmly and quickly. So they understand our message. They understand that what we wear on our patch, firm but fair, it's exactly how we operate every day.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. Years ago, I covered an event in Holyoke. It was then Police Chief Scott and Mike Sullivan, who was mayor, and the sheriff. And we were walking through a section of Holyoke that had a lot of problems, crime-wise. And it was interesting. There were people who came out of their apartments, it was a summer's evening, to shake Sheriff Ash's hand and say to him, I heard several of them say, Sheriff Ash, I'm still straight. It was people who had been through the jail, been through the program, and they wanted to assure the sheriff that they still were sticking to the straight and narrow. And it was quite a testimony to what you guys do out there, that they weren't hiding from the sheriff. They wanted the sheriff to know, just like those guys congratulated you, that they were sticking to the program. And I thought, this is really impressive. It's really impressive to see people do this and come out and want to say this. And so that's the power of what you guys are doing.
If we let people come into our facility and leave no better of a person, and they go back out and they commit another crime and they come back into jail, they're angry. They're angry at us. I believe they should be angry at themselves, but they're going to put blame, and the blame's going to come on the Hampden County Sheriff's Department for the lack of efforts we did to help them. Because we provide so much education, treatment, and programming and reentry services, and we literally walk them through the process, when they go out and recommit a crime and come in, they're embarrassed because they can't point their finger at us. They can't point their finger at the Sheriff's Department and says, you didn't help me, because there is an aftercare center on State Street. There is an addiction center that they could have utilized and probably did. There is a reentry unit even in the medium facility that we start to work on the housing, the employment, and the services. So when they come back into us and they start pointing fingers at us, I call time out. Go look in the mirror. We tried to help you. You weren't ready. It didn't work, and you're back. Now, let's try it again. We're back in the same position. Let us help you now. It diffuses them immediately because you take the responsibility and the ownership and you put the accountability back on them. The difference between going to jail and committing crimes and being a law-abiding citizen is the decisions that you make. We want our population to go back to the community and make good, thought-out decisions. To have a decision-making process that leads you to go away from what's easy and illegal and work a little harder and stay in concert with what the rules in the laws are, especially in our community.
Let's talk about a challenge that every sheriff, in fact, every elected official is going to be facing, which is the state budget. Part of the thing that was a reoccurring theme during the election for sheriff was the ability of the sheriff to lobby successfully to get the money he or she needs. So we're at the beginning of the budget issue for the next fiscal year. Are you seeing good news, bad news, level funding?
Yeah, well, we were in this exact room for our first real debate, and that was a major bone of contention with my opponents. You can't go there and get the money. And I said then, and I'll say again today, that going to Boston and asking for a budget that is conducive to do what we do isn't as hard as people think it is, because we're bringing our report card, and our report card is extremely good. Our recidivism rate is one of the lowest in the country. It continues to drop. Our efforts are recognized by the governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker. He wants to model employment services for offenders out of Hampden County. The President of the United States, the champion of change to Sheriff Ash, based on how we do our work with reentry and employment. So The House One budget came out. It's the governor's budget. It was very respectful to Hampden County. It was a 2% increase. We didn't hit a home run, but I'd say we hit a triple, and we're not done. I met just this week with the Secretary of Public Safety, Dan Bennett. We had a great conversation. I've met with the Senate President the week prior. I saw the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, last night, and every one of them, to my, I would say, to my, I'm just shocked that I walk in, new sheriff of Hampden County, aren't you? I'm like, wow. I said, I know who Mr. Speaker is, and I know who the Senate President is, and I know who the Secretary of Public Safety is, but I didn't know that they followed the race so closely, and they did, and that's what they tell me. Hey, it was important for us down here to know who was going to succeed Mike Ash. And when we saw that the sheriff got behind you, we started to wish you the best of luck, but we stayed out of it. You know, we're down in Boston. But to see you there, we're excited. And that meant a lot to me. I mean, I was really taken back that when I walked into the room, that I was addressed by the Speaker as, hey, how's the good sheriff of Hampden County doing? I was very, very appreciative. It made me feel good. And it also made me realize that the work that we're doing every day is recognized down in Beantown. And again, House One was respectful. I'm going back. I'm talking to our legislative delegation. I want the home run. I don't want the triple. But we're going to continue to work to accomplish our goals. But most importantly, I promise, one of my campaign promises was I'd be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers. And that's exactly what we're doing. I want to continue to provide the services that keep our cities and our towns in Hampden County safe.
Let's touch on another post-election issue. Part of the election, certainly I covered it, was how there were elements of your staff at large that was backing another candidate. And I know that when you're elected, you were promising that you were going to make sure that you had a united effort at the jail. Have you taken steps to try to, I don't want to use this phrase, I'll use it anyway, win people over, for them to understand who you are and what your policies are toward them?
Absolutely. I mean, what steps to win them over? I'm just being me. I'm a correctional officer. I understand what they go through every day. I understand what it's like to get up at 10 o'clock at night and have to be into work for 11:25 at night and work till 8 in the morning. I understand what it's like to work the 4 to 12 shift. I know what it's like to come in on weekends and holidays and Christmas and Easter. I know it's tough. So what do I try to do? I just try to make it as comfortable as we can for the staff coming in those times away from their families, but holding them accountable to do a good job. And an honest day's work is absolutely always going to be received with an honest day's pay, as at least it was with Sheriff Ash, and it's going to be with Sheriff Cocchi. Now, some of the issues that came up was the staff dining or the meals. We're working on that presently. We just received a letter to go into negotiations, the contract cost of living raises and things like that. We're waiting to hear back from the state. But one thing I've done that has been very well received from the staff, and yes, staff are now saying, all right, we don't have a choice. Let's give them a shot. And they're working with me rather than working against me. And that I have to say, I thank them very much. I asked them to take a leap of faith with me. I asked them to believe in my past, my history, and the fact that I'm a correctional officer. And I would have to say to you, I see that being done on a very wide scale, from the uniform as well as the non-uniform staff. I would say in your first 100 days, you have a grace period. You have a period where always your approval rating is going to be high. And then it can, now, okay, what have you done for me lately and where are you going? I have a plan. I don't have a 100-day plan. I have a 6-year plan. And after those 6 years, I'm going to have another 6-year plan. And why and how? Because I've grown up there. I understand what the correctional officer is doing all the way to now the superintendent. And I'm just very proud, again, of what the men and women do. Everybody doesn't have to love you, but we're always hoping that we all respect each other. We are a family. Families have squabbles. Families don't always agree. But at the end of the day, a family sticks together. And every day we come to work, in our line of work, something bad can happen. And then we're going to fight every day, tooth and nail, to make sure that nothing bad happens in Hampden County and that all our men and women go home safe to their families. All those inmates are kept in the best of health, that they're provided a safe and humane facility that's conducive for positive change. And that's what we work at every day. And you know what? When we meet a fork in the road and we take one of the paths and that path turns out not to be the right one or the best one, we're going to put it in reverse and we're going to try it again. I have no shame at all in my game of making a decision or making a proposal and having it not work out the way it should have, hitting the brakes, bringing it back, and let's try it again. You know, we don't have to force something to work. We're going to know if it works or not based on our recidivism rate, based on the climate of the institution, and based on how the staff are responding to the changes. And the staff are the people that drive that place every day.
So how did you get into this? How did a young Nick Cocchi decide, I'm interested in a career in corrections?
I was at the union president's retirement party last night. A very good friend of mine, William Griffith. And he said in a speech, and he was spot on, nobody goes to college and raises their hand and says, I'm here, I want to get my degree, and I want to be a correctional officer. They may go in preschool and in college and say, I want to be a police officer, an FBI agent, a firefighter, and we can go on and on. None of them are putting their hand up to say, I want to be a correctional officer. But I was in between my junior and senior year in college, and I needed a summer job. And I heard that the jail in Ludlow hires for summer employment. I went, I asked, there was an opportunity. I went in, I worked for the summer, and I absolutely, it just clicked with me. I loved what I did. And the sheriff, I went to the sheriff and I asked him if he would consider hiring me for the next academy. He said he would if I made a promise. And the promise was that I will hire you full-time if you will then go to school full-time, so you're going to have 2 full-time jobs. I said I would. He kept up his end of the bargain. I kept up my end of the bargain, got my degree, and 23 and a half years later, I sit in the office of the sheriff as a sheriff of Hampden County. It's a great career, and I am blessed to have been given that opportunity.
Excellent. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming in today, and continued success at the jail. I think that people need to understand that what you're doing there, what you and your staff are doing there, is actively protecting us by helping people turn their life around at a very critical point in their life. And when we talk about crime rates in Hampden County, the efforts that you guys are making are just important than any other part of law enforcement, because you're helping keeping the streets safe, and we appreciate that.
Well, Mike, thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity, and your questions were so spot on, and I'm glad we got the opportunity to get that out to our viewers. And I would just say that in Hampden County, we treat people with respect. So if anybody out there has a family member who has ever come through our system, or God forbid ever may come through our system, just know that they're in good hands, and they will be treated as a human being. They will be given the opportunity to right their wrongs, and they'll be given the best opportunity of correcting whatever it is that needs correction and getting a second shot at being successful. So thank you again very much, Mike.
And thanks very much, folks, for watching another edition of Government Matters here on Focus Springfield.